the 25 competitors in front of him if he can get going. Has he got going? Well, he's sitting there alone. Now, Prost has a lot of mental problems in revving the engine enough when he drops the clutch. I hear the engine firing, and Alain Prost, instead of starting from pole position after 1.5 hours on Friday, an hour on Friday afternoon, and the same again on Saturday, 5 hours of practice which enabled him to get into pole position, that has all disappeared. And that means effectively that Damon Hill is starting from pole position, and Damon has already led 6 Grand Prix this year. This is the 11th of the year. But by the same token, it will give Michael Schumacher, who's got a clear track in front of him, or will have when the grid forms up, a golden opportunity from his point of view to get past Damon Hill and take the lead. Well, a tremendous bonus for Damon Hill and for Schumacher and for Senna, who've got to be the top 3 men in this race at the front now that Alain Prost is starting from the back. I have always, in my bones, expected this to be an exciting and eventful Hungarian Grand Prix, but I certainly didn't expect the excitement and the events to be beginning before the race had even started. So, now they are making their way down from turn 11 into the left-handed turn 12, which leads into the continuous double right-hander turns 13 and 14, and into the start and finish line with no doubt I don't know whether he's furious, depressed, or both those things, Alain Prost, motoring quietly along at the back. When you see the Williams exit the right-hander, the grid will be completed. The usual green flag will be shown by the official at the rear of the grid to show Roland Brunschreider, who is the race director and who starts the race, that everybody is ready to go, including that man at the bottom of your picture, 3 times world champion Alain Prost, who has never won in Hungary. So there's the green flag. The red light is the middle of these 3. And it's go now. Damon Hill gets away well, so does Michael Schumacher. There's a Ferrari storming along at the back, and that's Alesi. Damon Hill leads, Schumacher is second, Senna is third, but Berger goes through into 2nd place, loses it to Senna on the right-hander, and as they come down the hill, it's Hill, Senna, Berger, Schumacher. Alesi is up from 8th position to 5th at the first corner. The Ferraris are going well so far, and Ayrton Senna is going to give Damon Hill a very hard time indeed, because he has won this race 3 times already, Senna. He's finished second 4 times and runs wide, which gives Berger the opportunity to close up and Damon Hill to extend the gap a bit. Now, this is the chicane, and already it looks to me as though Ayrton Senna is creating a bit of a traffic jam, and somebody goes off. It looked like a Ligier to me. It's Barrichello and a wheel off. Rubens Barrichello, the Brazilian now. If he stays on the circuit, they may have to stop the race. If he's deemed to be in a position of danger, they will have to stop the race. Well, my goodness, things are certainly happening in Hungary. Prost fails to start from pole position. Rubens Barrichello loses a wheel and goes off on the first lap. Damon Hill is leading, harried by Ayrton Senna, who has got Gerhard Berger right behind him. Now, Hill completes lap 1, 76 to go. And the 2 Benettons are absolutely together. It's Berger, and Schumacher goes through and takes Patrese. So somewhere on that first lap, Michael Schumacher, who started from 3rd place on the grid, was passed by his teammate Riccardo Patrese and has regained the place. Lap 1, Hill, Senna, Berger, Patrese, Schumacher, Alesi are the top 6, with Michael Schumacher having gained a place. And one of the Tyrrells in already. I can't see whether it's Katayama or De Cesaris. And this is what they have... Oh, that's a replay of Rubens Barrichello going off. And obviously, from the fact that the red flag has not been shown and the race has not been stopped, it means that they've managed to pull Barrichello's Jordan out of the way, or alternatively, he's stopped out of the way in any case. And Damon Hill is leading, and it's a nice gap already.
Yes, it looked like Barrichello hit somebody. His right front wheel had obviously been plucked off against the left rear of somebody else, quite while he continued driving on what was clearly a three-wheeled car. I don't know, unless he thought he was moving to the car in a safer place. But I think the real interest now is going to come from the fact that Gerhard Berger made a pretty good job of that pretty tough start. Senna, Schumacher, Patrese and Berger were all in there muscling it out. But Berger is going to be holding up the Benettons. We've got Schumacher having a go already, but Berger's not going to want to give up that place easily.
And at the end of the second lap, with 75 to go, as you watch Berger and Schumacher third and fourth, Damon Hill leads Ayrton Senna by 2.5 seconds, and Berger's not going to be at all anxious to yield here. He was only 16th in the warm-up, having had handling problems with his race car and switched to the spare car, which seems to be going well, but Schumacher is swarming all over him, and is very anxious indeed to get past, because he's actually being held up by Berger. You can see how close it is, and you can see how close Riccardo Patrese is in 5th place, with Alesi 6th. Andretti is in 7th place, we're with Schumacher now, third in 4th position behind Gerhard Berger's Ferrari.
Now here's where Schumacher's got to start planning his overtaking manoeuvre. He can only really get by, bar a mistake from Berger, into the first corner at the end of the start-finish straight. He's now coming down to the hairpin, through a chicane, 120 miles an hour through here, third gear, down up to 150 miles an hour, down to second gear. Now Schumacher's got to get right on the back of Berger as they go through this next right 180-degree corner. It's going to be difficult. His front wing is going to lose downforce from being right behind Berger, but here's where he needs to get on top of, and he looks well placed. A puff of distracting dust there from Berger, but Schumacher looks well placed. He will certainly try and have a look around Berger now. He goes to the outside. Oh, and he's... Now that was a magnificent attempt there. Tremendous overtaking manoeuvre there from Schumacher.
Absolutely brilliant, because he sold Gerhard Berger a dummy. He moved up on the right. Berger moved across to block him. Schumacher calmly moved to the left and drove round the outside of the Ferrari, which shows how well the Benetton handles. And to prove it, Riccardo Patrese, who is in 5th position, is having a go at the Ferrari himself now. And Ayrton Senna, and there's a spinner, and off goes Schumacher. Well, I spoke a bit too soon, but his car is perfectly okay. He will have got some dust on the tyres, and he joins behind Brundle, who is in 10th position. So, whilst all this is going on, remember that Prost is fighting his way through the field, and Alain Prost is in 19th position at the end of the third lap. And here is a replay from Michael Schumacher's car. He turns into the right-hander there. Now, this is the chicane. He would have been doing about 140 miles an hour as he approached it. Spins off, debris all over the place, and Schumacher has got to fight his way through now. And Patrese is in 4th position, but sandwiched by the two Ferraris with Michael Andretti behind him. Now, so there is Alesi, who is now in 3rd position. In 4th position, I'm sorry, Berger in front of him. 5th is number 27, and that is Jean Alesi. 6th is Michael Andretti, going well. Derek Warwick is in 7th place, Martini is 8th, Brundle is in 9th position, Schumacher is down to 10th and fighting back, and Alain Prost is cutting his way through the field. He's right behind Johnny Herbert as I talk to you, and you watch Damon Hill, lap 5, leading by nearly 3 seconds, and the man he's ahead of is Ayrton Senna.
I really think that was rather a lapse of concentration there from Schumacher. He'd driven extraordinarily well to get by Berger around the outside into that first corner. He'd had a slide, the back end did come round, the car oversteered, he controlled it, but he managed to get around Berger at the same time. Now, having got ahead, he was clearly under no pressure from Berger, and maybe he's got an oversteer characteristic there. That was the second time the back came round, but of course when he did go off, he couldn't control it. So we have to watch that to see how he gets on. Meanwhile, we're going to have to now see if Patrese can pull the same sort of manoeuvre on Berger that Schumacher did. Patrese is not quite as fast as Schumacher, but he still should be half a second or a second or so faster than Berger.
Damon Hill crosses the line to complete his 5th lap. Something thrown up, I think it was just a bit of paper. Ayrton Senna is adopting his usual strategy of keeping as close to the Williams in front as he can, in order to pressurise its driver, which is Damon Hill, and hope that something will go wrong. And Senna is now 3.6 seconds behind Hill, who's put up the fastest lap of the race so far. This is a replay of Michael Schumacher spinning off in the Benetton, and you see Jean Alesi's car in the background passing him. Now we're with Schumacher, and that's a footwork in front of him, so it's either Suzuki or it's Derek Warwick. I just caught a flash of the blue helmet as he went past him. And so Michael Schumacher is moving up through the field, and he's now in 7th position, which is where Derek Warwick was. And Schumacher's next target is Michael Andretti, who is in the points at 6th position. Lap 6, Damon Hill leads, 3.6 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna. Berger is 3rd, 7 seconds behind the Brazilian. 4th is Patrese, 5th is Alesi, 6th is Andretti, 7th is Schumacher, and gaining on the man in front, Michael Andretti. Now, the gap was 3.6 seconds. Damon Hill completes the lap, and I'm waiting to see Ayrton Senna go by. There he is in the background, 4.5 seconds. So Damon Hill is driving a masterly race. He's pulling away at almost a second a lap. And here's the battle for 3rd, with Berger, Patrese, Alesi, Andretti. Schumacher is behind them. Then there is Derek Warwick, and behind Warwick is Pierluigi Martini in 9th position. Martin Brundle is in 10th place, and that is Damon Hill. Now, the fastest lap there, 1:22.096, is some 4 seconds off the lap record held by Nigel Mansell, and Alain Prost is up to 16th position. From 26th on the grid, the Frenchman has fought his way through. He's gained 10 places. He is on lap 7.
Now, on that shot of the main straight that we saw a few seconds ago, we could see just one of the very big problems here, and that's the fact that offline there is a lot of debris on the circuit. We call it marbles, bits of tyre, bits of sand, which is one of the reasons why this track is so incredibly slippery, particularly if you do move away from the racing line. Again, when we come to that head-on shot, I'm sure there'll be far too much action going on. We're now with that looks like Patrese. Yeah, that's Patrese right behind Berger. Now let's see how he gets on, because he should be able to do the same manoeuvre that Schumacher did. He's well placed. We've got one more corner to go, coming up to the last right-hander. He needs to get right in behind Berger here now. He looks too far away to me at this point, but he's closing. But no, Berger's pulling away. Now that is farther away than Schumacher was. Now Schumacher went by at that point.
And Damon Hill's done another fastest lap, 1:22.088, and he is now over 6 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna in 2nd place. There is the Brazilian in his McLaren with the Ford V8 engine, and Damon Hill, of course, has the Renault V10, which has served the team so well since they switched from the Judd engine in 1988. Damon Hill is now leading his 7th Grand Prix. He's already led 6 of them, and this is Schumacher still trying to get to grips with Gerhard Berger's Ferrari in 3rd place. And this is great news for racing enthusiasts all over the world, because Ferrari have been trying so hard to get their car right, and they are now showing signs of doing so. They have a completely new computer program for their active suspension. They have a new team manager in Frenchman Jean Todt, who is making a few waves at Maranello, I can tell you, and is not altogether popular with a lot of people, but to effect changes you often have to become unpopular. So Schumacher is chasing, and that is Michael Andretti in front. And now you see Berger and Patrese. And Riccardo Patrese, sandwiched between the two V12 Ferraris of Berger and Alesi, who are in 3rd and 5th positions, has really come good for Benetton lately after, 5 seasons with Williams. And Alain Prost passes Wendlinger's Sauber, so Prost is up into 11th position now. And we're riding with the Williams now, and this is one of the fastest parts of the course.
I think so far have panned out really quite well for Damon Hill here. He's got now an 8-second lead over Senna in second place, and indeed Senna can't be complaining either, because he's some 11 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger, and he will know that Gerhard will do a great job holding up the queue of traffic that's building up behind. We've got, of course, Berger, Patrese, Alesi, Andretti, the Schumacher. I'm sure they'll be joined by Prost before long. And really at the moment, a lot depends on whether Patrese can get by Berger in the same way that his teammate did, or indeed is somebody else behind that, and it could be Schumacher, I would imagine, will carve his way past Patrese before Patrese gets by Berger. You can see this circuit, actually, it's probably the most demanding, the most physically demanding circuit on a calendar. You can see too just how much rear wing the cars are carrying. It's 70% corners around here, which makes it one of the most stressful circuits. Lots of cornering. To get the best lap time from the car, that means the most amount of downforce, because you need downforce to get around the corners quickly. And you can see just that some of these cars, like the Williams and McLaren and Benetton, have got an extra wing at the top edge, at the leading aspect of their rear wing, is an extra wing in front of the main rear wing, and that is all in the quest of more downforce, as Prost has another look.
Yes, Prost having a look at Aguri Suzuki's footwork, and Suzuki is in 12th position. Incidentally, it was Leto that Prost was behind, and not Carl Wendlinger. And on lap 10 out of 77, Damon Hill is leading by 9 seconds now. There he is. Ayrton Senna is second, 13 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger. And then there's this tremendous fight behind the Austrian's Ferrari as Damon Hill goes through to... He's on his 11th lap now. And I was saying there's this tremendous scrap behind the Ferrari with Riccardo Patrese 4th, Jean Alesi 5th, Michael Andretti still 6th, Michael Schumacher is still in 7th place. So the German in the Benetton Ford is being held up by some very fast men, and here they come towards us. Look at this, because it is Berger in 3rd position. There is Patrese behind him 4th, Alesi is 5th, Andretti is 6th, and on his gearbox trying to get past is Michael Schumacher. And this is what Michael Andretti needs, some real race cut and thrust experience at the front of a Grand Prix. He's holding up well so far, but he's also, I think, holding up Michael Schumacher. They have identical engines, the Ford V8 with the Series 7 specification, because you want torque here and acceleration, and that's the right specification to have. So, having a look at Michael Andretti's McLaren Ford is Michael Schumacher that we are with now. Watch the comparative performance of Berger. That's Patrese in the yellow and green car in 4th position. 5th is the second Ferrari, and it's encouraging that not only are the Ferraris quick at the front, all right, not as quick as Damon Hill, who is leading, and not as quick as Ayrton Senna, who is second, but they're not only quick, but they are thus far reliable. I know it's only lap 12 at the present moment, but reliability has also been an Achilles heel of the Ferrari car so far this year. Now, this could be Riccardo Patrese's opportunity to get past Gerhard Berger. He's having a look. Berger moves across and says, my line, if you don't mind, and this is where I want it, on the inside of the corner, which is where you want to be, Riccardo, but I'm there, so hard luck. Berger is still 3rd. Patrese is still 5th. Alesi is still 6th. Ferrari, Benetton, Ferrari. Then the McLaren and Michael Schumacher's 2nd Benetton. And while Schumacher, who is undoubtedly the fastest of this bunch of drivers that we are looking at, is held up by Michael Andretti, he is, of course, seeing the gap between himself and Damon Hill extend all the time. We're on lap 12 now out of 77. Hill has maintained the gap between himself and Ayrton Senna at 9.8 seconds. There is the man from London, Damon Hill, who has been such a fine backup to Alain Prost and is now leading for the Williams team, and he's coming up to one of the Tyrrells at the present moment. It looks like Aguri Katayama's car. He's in 20th place, and I remind you the route now, it's De Cesaris, and Barrichello is out of the race, the only retirement so far.
There's that real traffic jam now building up behind Gerhard Berger. And the real reason is this track is just so very, very hard to overtake on. We've said it's 70% cornering, and as well as that, there is really only one line. Off that line, the track is very sandy, and you can't afford to get too far off it. Now, the other thing in favour of Berger is that the Ferrari, in fact, doesn't have that extra forward wing on its back wing. I think the reason that they haven't got it, in fact, was because they didn't get around to making it, not for any more strategic reason, but that does give Gerhard a bit of a straight line speed advantage. And indeed, from the speed trap times in the morning warm-up, he was just 1.5 miles an hour faster than Patrese, but that is clearly enough just to give him the edge and keep him ahead all the way through. Now, one of the other big things as we watch Schumacher following Andretti, who is actually having his best race probably of the year. To be this far up at this early stage really is tremendous, particularly bearing in mind he started from 11th, so he's driven not just a quick race so far with some good overtaking moves, but also kept out of trouble, which is has also been something which he hasn't necessarily done before. But one of the most important things, as we watch Andretti, for example, ahead of Schumacher, is that Andretti doesn't make a mistake in perhaps an effort, or more likely a Lacey. If a Lacey tries to get by Patrese, he may well lose time if it's a failed manoeuvre, and that could let Schumacher by a Lacey himself. So one has to be very careful in this traffic jam queuing situation, so that in your attempts to get by somebody ahead of you, you do not let somebody behind you get by. And again, Berger's well ahead, really. I mean, Patrese is just not going to get by, and I think it's going to take somebody like Schumacher to try and find a way by for him to have the aggression to actually do it.
Or, of course, for them to pass in the pits. What do I mean by that? I mean that we know there are going to be tyre stops, and it could, for instance, be possible for Riccardo Patrese to say to himself, I'm never going to get past Gerhard Berger if I stay out here. I will nip into the pits and get a fresh set of tyres, which will give me greater grip, and I will rejoin further down the field and hope to get past Gerhard Berger by doing that. Well, Damon Hill doesn't have that problem at the moment. He's coming up to a couple of tail-enders as they go through now. One of them is one of the Lolas, and Damon Hill is on his 14th lap now, and that is Andrea De Cesaris in the 021 Tyrrell, and we're looking back now to see where Ayrton Senna is in relation to Damon Hill. That's the answer. 3 times the winner here, 4 times second here. It looks as though it's going to be 5 times second here, but there's a long, long way to go. Lap 14, 77-lap race. It lasts for 1 3/4 hours. The heat is intense, and here is the battle. 3rd, Berger. 4th, Riccardo Patrese. 5th is a Lacey. 6th is still Andretti. 7th is Michael Schumacher. Warwick is 8th, Martini is 9th, Martin Brundle is in 10th place, 3 British drivers in the top 10 places. Alain Prost is up to 11th, and behind Martin Brundle. Maybe we'll be able to have a look at that later on, but this is the real interest in the race in terms of battles for positions. Age shall not wither, etc. And Riccardo Patrese, who is in 4th position, is 39 years old, the most experienced Grand Prix driver of them all. Incredibly, this is his 251st Grand Prix, and Michael Schumacher is showing signs of really pushing Michael Andretti in the background now. Schumacher in 7th place. He's only 3.8 seconds ahead of Derek Warwick, who is 8th. And Damon Hill is now on his 16th lap, so let's enjoy this.
Now, we've actually heard from the pits that Prost apparently just stalled. He had no mechanical troubles, and this really is bad news for Alain. He's somebody who's this has happened to him before at Donington in the wet race, and of course at Monaco when he had that stop-go penalty. He seems to have, in his quest for smoothness, this sort of aversion for really revving an engine hard. And these are racing engines. They rev to some 15,000 revs, which is 3 times as high as your average road car. And they do need to be bullied in this situation, and sometimes he just seems to take it too smoothly. Now, I think I agree with entirely, Murray, that we could... Oh, and that is Andretti. Oh, that is very bad news for Andretti there. It looks like he's got a mechanical problem of some sort. Nothing that looks damaged at the moment. Great effort. This chap really does not have a lot of luck. He really doesn't.
Well, I really do feel desperately sorry for Michael Andretti. He was in the points, very much needing a good finish to do his self-respect some good, because there are already pit lane rumours that he's not going to be with the McLaren team next year, maybe not even in the 2 last races of the year, because all the time, of course, Mika Hakkinen, who has just won the Porsche race here, is waiting as the McLaren test driver to take the drive he has been promised by McLaren team boss Ron Dennis before the season ends, and it's not inconceivable that he'll be driving in Japan and in Australia. So Michael Andretti's had nothing to raise his confidence here except a good run ahead of Michael Schumacher, because he was in 6th position, and that means to say that at least one of the obstacles for Michael Schumacher, who's now in 6th position, has been removed, and that of course was Michael Andretti. And on lap 16 now, Damon Hill, that you're looking at, is lapping a couple of tenths slower at the present moment than Ayrton Senna, but he's got nothing to worry about because he's over 16 seconds ahead of him. Berger is just a couple of seconds behind Ayrton Senna. Up to 8th position has come Alain Prost. He's cutting through the midfield like a hot knife through butter. And Prost in the Williams Renault has got Derek Warwick in 7th place ahead of him. And then Michael Schumacher, and Prost can be in the pits before, in the points before very long, and Andretti is in the garage.
As we look at Andretti there, just looking at the monitor, with Andretti having fallen out and that putting a bit of clear space in front of Schumacher, Schumacher has been able to lap 3 seconds quicker in one go, just bang. That's how much he was being held up, and despite being held up by 3 seconds a lap, such is the tortuous nature of this place that he could still not find a way by. Now, in fact, I think we could well see most of the overtaking manoeuvres that do go on actually not happening out on the circuit, but happening in the pits. All the cars are running on the softer C-compound tyre. Grip is overwhelmingly important, and no team has thought it worthwhile trying the harder B-compound. So the next question is, will they make 1 stop or 2? Because of the smaller tyres that we've got, as we're there with... Now, this looks interesting now. We've now got Schumacher right up behind Patrese, and he could well do something about it. He can't this lap. It doesn't look like it, but we'll see next time round. Back on the tyres, the question is whether or not... Schumacher's got past Alesi, of course, in order to be right up behind there, so we didn't see that. Maybe he had a problem. Just back on the tyres, the question is, will they make 1 stop or 2 stops? These smaller tyres are having a much harder time of it. Goodyear have been surprised to find tyre wear twice as much. And that looks like that's Zanardi coming into the pits there for a tyre stop there. If they're going to make 2 stops, they will be in the next couple of laps, next 2 or 3 laps, I suspect, to make the first stop round about lap 20 and the second stop round about lap 45. If it's going to be 1 stop, they probably will not stop until round about lap 30. And that's Senna. Senna has stopped. What a dreadful race for McLaren.
Ayrton Senna has probably seen his World Championship disappear if Prost can keep up the pressure, because with the Brazilian out to join his teammate Michael Andretti, Ayrton Senna out on lap 18 and Michael Andretti out on lap 16. Both the McLarens disappear. The race has come alight now because Damon Hill has got a massive lead. He's on lap 19 out of 77. And what he's got to think about now is concentration and reliability. And you saw Alain Prost up there. And we're still waiting for the battle for what is now 2nd place to come through. And here it is. And Michael Schumacher is challenging Gerhard Berger. And he takes the 2nd place. That is an absolutely magnificent passing move. At the one place where he can do it, as into the pits for tyres, comes Jean Alesi, who was down to 6th position. And the race order now on lap 19 out of 20 is Hill leading Berger leading Schumacher by 42 seconds. Berger 3rd, Patrese in 4th position. Alain Prost is not only in the points but up into 5th place, and Derek Warwick is perhaps temporarily but nevertheless in the points at 6th place now that Jean Alesi has come in for a new set of tyres. And I was told by the Williams people that they may be making a very early tyre stop. When they said early, they meant as early as lap 15. Well, we're well past that now. We've had Alessandro Zanardi in for tyres. I remind you that Barrichello, Andretti and Ayrton Senna are out of the Hungarian Grand Prix. And on lap 20 out of 77, you're watching a very comfortable race leader, Damon Hill, with Prost up behind Patrese. Into the pits comes the 2nd Ferrari. And Gerhard Berger into the pit lane for new tyres, and that means to say that Michael Schumacher is up into second place, and Patrese is third. In fourth position, Prost right behind the Italian, as Gerhard Berger takes on new tyres. So, Hill on lap 20 leading Schumacher by nearly 41 seconds. Damon has got time to come into the pits in the lead, change tyres and rejoin in the lead.
Yes, that really was a great demonstration when we saw Schumacher go by Berger of the difference in calibre between these two drivers. Patrese have been rather weakly trying to have a look to get by Berger for some 6-7 laps, whatever it was. The moment Schumacher came up a lot behind Berger, Schumacher pulled the very same manoeuvre and got away with it on the first step. He came up behind him. So quite outstanding driving from Schumacher. He very much deserves to be in second place from that. And incidentally, we've heard that the problems with both McLaren cars was because of throttle problems. They do have this fly-by-wire throttle, which means there's no cable. It's worked by electronics, although apparently the two problems were not the same. So we're obviously not quite sure what the exact details of that were at this stage.
Very interesting that, because it's a very advanced technical feature. And this is into the pits comes Alain Prost to take on new tyres. And this is going to help him no end. Now, I wonder how his time will compare with that of Alessandro Zanardi, which was about 7.15 seconds. The Frenchman metaphorically kicking himself in the cockpit. He's got to make sure he gives it some welly this time when he blasts out of the pit. And that's a long tyre change. My goodness, Prost is having terrible luck in this race. He fails to start from his pole position, and there is a problem with the right rear for some reason. And Prost, having fought his way up to fourth position, is seeing the seconds tick away and losing places. There's a rear wing problem of some kind. Meantime, Damon Hill is cutting through the field. He has just passed Thierry Boutsen, and Boutsen is in 17th place. So Hill has lapped everybody up to 17th. As you can see, Alain, it's a loose body cover. That's the problem. One of the fasteners, or some of the fasteners, have come loose. Oh dear. Well, Prost is leading the championship by 27 points. His chief rival, Ayrton Senna, is already out of the race. Prost, of course, is out of the points again, because having failed to start from pole position, he's seen car after car go past. Damon Hill is leading Schumacher now by 36 seconds, and he's on his 22nd lap. Riccardo Patrese in the second Benetton is in third position, and he is some 6 seconds behind Schumacher, and we've still got about 56 laps to go, with Prost stationary in the pits.
It looks at the back of that Williams car as if there is a problem with the structural mounting of that rear wing, I would say, from where I'm looking. They're going to change it looks like they're going to change that rear wing in entirety. The rear bodywork had to come off to do that. But as we look at Damon Hill now, Schumacher 36 seconds behind, which on the face of it looks comfortable for Damon. But in this morning's warm-up session, Schumacher was actually 0.8 of a second faster than Damon, and indeed he is currently lapping, or he has been lapping for the past few laps, 2 seconds a lap faster. So really Damon can certainly not afford to relax. He's going to have to really keep the pressure on, and that, it looks like the Prost problem is terminal there.
Now, Alain Prost seemingly retiring from the Hungarian Grand Prix, but until we see that steering wheel come out of the cockpit, followed by the Frenchman himself, he's in the race, and very much in the race at the present moment. Derek Warwick, who's in fourth position in the footwork, ahead of Pierluigi Martini. Martin Brundle is in sixth position. Wendlinger is seventh. Suzuki is eighth. Fittipaldi is ninth. Alesi is 10th. Gerhard Berger is 11th. Philippe Alliot is 12th. And Johnny Herbert and Mark Blundell are 13th and 14th. Lap 23. Prost's luck looks as though it has run out. I wouldn't have thought that was the best time to carry out an interview with the Frenchman in the cockpit. But there he was. And there he is. Damon Hill past the pit lane. He's coming through to complete another lap, which will be his 23rd. And straight into the wall goes the Ferrari of Jean Alesi. He's gone off. He's had handling problems all through practice. He got very few practice laps as a result of it. And maybe there was a problem with that computerized suspension setup. Here is a replay. Coming towards us is Michele Alboreto. On the right is Wendlinger, followed by Suzuki. And Alesi touches wheels with Christian Fittipaldi's Minardi. And of course, it's tremendously quick there. He's pushed right offline, nothing he could do. Straight into the gravel trap, debris flying off everywhere. Out of the gravel, across the grass, totally loses traction, slams into the Armco. And the popular French Sicilian, who has had such a dreadful season for Ferrari, is out of the race again. That's the 7th time in 11 races he has failed to finish. Here it is, there's a replay again. You watch Jean Alesi disappear over the grass, and of course you're long gone then with that speed, and there is no way you can do anything at all about it, except pull your legs up, get your head down, probably take your hands off the steering wheel to avoid damaging your thumbs if there is kickback. And Damon Hill in the lead on lap 24 at the end of 35 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. Is coming in for new tyres. You know what happened to Alain Prost? He had a problem there. Damon Hill, of course, their test driver, knows everything about this car that there is to know. And this hopefully will be a smooth and effortless... Yes, lovely, lovely, lovely. Damon Hill, 6.7 seconds. And he came in the lead, and he rejoins in the lead behind Marc Blundell, who has been lapped and is in 14th place in his Renault-propelled Ligier. So that was a beautiful stop by Damon Hill and the Williams team. 6.7 seconds to change all 4 tyres and wheels. Schumacher is now 33.0 seconds behind Hill. But Hill is on new tyres and Schumacher is not. And Schumacher is 6 seconds ahead of his teammate, Riccardo Patrese. We're on lap 25. 1/3 distance. Here's someone else doing a bit of rally crossing. It's the Lotus of Sandro Zanardi, who has been off a good few times in practice for one reason or another. And has been accused by a lot of people of being a bit of a wild man who needs to settle down. He's got a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of ability, as has Eric Comas there in the Larousse Lamborghini, who is coming in for new tyres. And Comas, the Frenchman, is in 11th place, or he was in 11th place when he came in. Behind him was Zanardi. Zanardi won't have done his chances of moving up a place very much good by going off the way he did. And Eric Comas, who's won the championship in every category he has driven in his career except this one, leaves the pits.
Well, news from the pits on Prost, first of all. Apparently, Prost felt a vibration with his car. Now, this is Schumacher coming in for his stop. Now, it's going to be pretty crucial for him to get through this without any problem at all. He's going to have a success in his chase of Damon there. Schumacher, yes, another good stop, not exceptional, 6.05 seconds. But back to Prost. Prost apparently felt he had a vibration from the rear end of the car. He came into the pits, and the team are now changing the rear wing. But it could possibly be that because of this auxiliary wing we spoke about, this extra wing further and further forward and higher up on the main wing, that's put extra stresses on the main structure. Now, clearly a team like Williams would have taken that into account in its design. We don't yet know if there was a real problem or if there's anything actually broken or not. But as we look at Damon now, as he threads his way back through some back markers, this in itself is a very tricky job around here because people are very loath to move offline. We've spoke about, that looks like Zanardi going into the pits for his car to be checked as one of the, that's Wendlinger there in the Sauber. But with Damon having made one stop at lap 23, and this is a 77-lap race, I think we can presume that he's going to be making a second stop for a second set of tyres. Hopefully the performance that he can get on the new set will allow him to pull out enough to give himself that cushion to afford the luxury of that second tyre stop. That is certainly the cautious approach to it, and it would probably be likely to see Williams take that kind of approach, just as a bit of a post-mortem on Hockenheim, when we did wonder whether or not Williams should have brought Hill in for another tyre stop or a tyre stop, The Williams tyres of Damon Hill were actually only half worn, and there was no problem. He did not need to come in for a stop at Hockenheim, and the puncture could have happened on a new set.
And with Alain Prost still patiently and very hot indeed, I'm sure, with the build-up of heat, not to mention the tension sits in his Williams waiting to see if they can fix it. He's a long, long way behind now. And because of Michael Schumacher's tyre stop, his teammate Riccardo Patrese has gone up into second place on lap 27. You're watching Hill come up to lap Johnny Herbert, and the Englishman is in 11th place. So Damon Hill on new tyres passes the Lotus, laps it, and comes through to complete his 27th lap out of 77. So we're only just over 1/3 distance in the Hungarian Grand Prix, which I remind you is tremendously demanding for both the car and the driver, not just because of the heat that we have today, over 40 degrees, and it's hot enough in a racing car cockpit at the best of times, but also because of the twisting, turning and very exhausting track. The Williams team pushing Alain Prost forward, and Derek Warwick is still in 4th place. Martin Brundle is still in 5th position. In fact, the race order on lap 28 as Schumacher comes in, and Schumacher in trouble. He's filtering his way into the pits. Now, is he just stopping for tyres? And Alain Prost rejoins. Now, this is the thing. Alain Prost is 6 laps behind, and that is Luca Badoer's Lola. We're on lap 28 now. There is the leader, and we think that Michael Schumacher is out. We're busy watching the monitor as you are, and I can't tell you for sure, but from the way Schumacher came into the pits, it did not look like a tyre stop to me. It looked like something far more than that. In which case there's a chance of Riccardo Patrese finishing in 2nd place. Here is the race leader. 28 laps completed, and Schumacher is out. That is the German walking in. So, Jean Alesi out, Schumacher out, Ayrton Senna out, Andretti out, Barrichello out, and Michael Schumacher, who was 3rd in the championship, ahead of Damon Hill, who had lost his 3rd place in the championship to the German after Damon had the dreadful misfortune to have to retire from the lead in the British Grand Prix with an engine problem, and then the German Grand Prix with that tyre problem. And Riccardo Patrese, this is in the Benetton, and he will be coming in. And Derek Warwick is running 3rd now, and I'm just comparing times to see whether Derek Warwick can get through. Well, Patrese out after a very quick tyre stop, but that will have given the tremendously popular veteran Derek Warwick a chance to close the gap between himself and the Benetton Ford of Riccardo Patrese as you watch Damon Hill. I won't say smoothly and effortlessly, because he's putting a tremendous amount of effort and concentration into his drive here in Hungary, but it is certainly a very smooth one. He exits turn 14, crosses the start and finish line. He is now on his 30th lap out of 77, and it should be Riccardo Patrese who comes through in 2nd place, because he had a 22-second lead over Derek Warwick when he came in for his tyres, and even allowing for the slowing down before he stopped. The actual tyre change itself, which will have taken about 6 or 7 seconds, and then the speeding up to race speed afterwards, he should have been able to rejoin before Derek Warwick went through. I don't know whether he did, I have to tell you, and until the two of them go by, I won't be able to tell you. But that won't be very long now. Damon Hill on his 30th lap now. In 4th position, it is the incredible Pierluigi Martini. Riccardo Patrese is 2nd, albeit nearly 55 seconds behind the man you're riding with, Damon Hill, who's plunging down to the left-handed turn. And here is Pierluigi Martini, who is in 4th position in his Minardi Ford, the underfunded team, who have scored points with Babazza and with Fittipaldi this season. And Pierluigi Martini has come back to Grand Prix racing with flair and a flourish. Pretty slow pit stop, but 11 seconds has enabled him just to keep ahead of this bunch. The Lotus ahead of the Lola going into turn 1. And Damon Hill is well away now because there's a long gap before the Williams Renault, having completed the lap, is followed by the Benetton of Riccardo Patrese in second position on lap 31. And what I'm most interested in is what is the gap between Patrese second and Warwick third. Brundle is in fourth place now that Martini has changed, stopped for tyres. Gerhard Berger is in sixth position. Johnny Herbert is seventh. Wendlinger is eighth. And Patrese has gone through 53 seconds ahead of Damon Hill that you were watching. Into the pits comes Derek Warwick, third position. Now, is he going to hold that third place? I don't think so, because he's going to have to stop, take on tyres. This is by far the best achievement of the Footwork Mugen team this year. Martin Brundle, who was fourth, has come in for tyres as well. So it looks to me as though Derek Warwick, that you watch accelerating out of the pit lane now, has retained his third position. But that's Martin Brundle behind him. This is the battle for third position that you're looking at now. The two Englishmen are Derek Warwick and Martin Brundle are in third and fourth places, and there is Pierluigi Martini, or was. Now look at this. Here is the footwork. That is the Ligier, and there is the Minardi. And coming into the pits, Akio Katayama, who has succeeded in keeping his Tyrrell on the island so far on lap 31. So we're coming up towards half distance in the Hungarian Grand Prix. The Tyrrell 021 with the Yamaha V10 engine of Japanese driver Akio Katayama makes a long pit stop, over 14 seconds. And on lap 32, Damon Hill, there he is, just disappearing out of your picture, is now 53 seconds ahead of Riccardo Patrese. Gerhard Berger, with all the tyre stops changes having settled down, is in third place, 22 seconds behind Riccardo Patrese.
But of course our real battle now is between Warwick, Brundle and Martini fighting for that third place there. These cars have all been fairly evenly matched throughout the weekend, and fighting for fourth place actually there. These cars have all been fairly evenly matched throughout the weekend, and again their only overtaking point, there's Damon. Now Damon waving there at Cesris and the Tyrrell, clearly being held up by him, but that's nothing new really there at all. But just reflect again, the only overtaking point is at the end of that main straight, and I had the chance to look at the McLaren data logging equipment as Damon goes through there, and the cars, you know, under the braking zone, when the steering wheel is straight, that braking zone is a mere 0.7 of a second, 46 meters only. That is the distance in which they have to brake. And somehow, as we're with Martin Brundle now, and somehow they have to try and get by during that very limited amount of time. Coming down, this is the left-hander, right-hander, 120 miles an hour. You can see the how much oil is, in fact, on the front of his camera lens, but that's also probably what's on the front of his visor. You can also get a chance to see those aerials there, the aerials that are for the data logging equipment, and those are sending signals back the whole time to the pits for the engineers to see exactly what's going on.
And as we ride with Martin Brundle in the Ligier, who is in fifth position behind Derek Warwick, there is the footwork. Behind Martin Brundle is Pierluigi Martini, so it is Damon Hill leading on lap 33. Riccardo Patrese is in second place, Gerhard Berger is third, Derek Warwick is fourth, but only just, because you're looking at the fourth, fifth and sixth men now. Fourth, Warwick, fifth, there he is, Martin Brundle, and in sixth position, Pierluigi Martini. And these three are only 3 seconds ahead of Johnny Herbert's Lotus, seventh position. who is 4 seconds ahead of Carl Wendlinger's Sauber, and he is in 8th place. Mark Blundell is 9th. Aguri Suzuki is 10th. Alio is 11th. Comas is 12th. Zanardi is in 13th place, with Thierry Boutsen in 14th position. The fastest lap so far, Riccardo Patrese, just over 1 minute 21 seconds, and that's about 2.5 seconds slower than Nigel Mansell's 1992 lap record. Now this is something different, a footwork in 4th place, Ligier in 5th position. There is Damon Hill, and he's on his 35th lap now, with a massive lead of 50 seconds over Riccardo Patrese. And Patrese himself is 28 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger, and Damon Hill has lapped everybody up to the Ferrari, which is in 3rd place. So Damon is in a magnificent rhythm now. That is the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger, and Damon just needs to keep that rhythm up and pray for reliability of the car and everything associated with it.
Yes, I'm sure in normal circumstances Damon really would be feeling pretty comfortable now. I'm sure he's not feeling stressed, but he will not be forgetting the events of the past few Grand Prix, and I'm sure that Damon will be concentrating very hard on not making any mistakes, which is very, very easy around here. We've seen in practice virtually every driver spin, including Prost, including Senna. It's easy to make a mistake, and he's going to have to keep his concentration right up, not get too carried away with the fact that he's 52 seconds ahead. And in fact, there's Schumacher being interviewed there, clearly. And he always looks so fresh, actually. I think one of the great things about Schumacher is that he can be finishing a race and still look young and fresh with it. Quite outstanding. But Williams has been very much dominating this weekend, as many others. And one of the things that's probably particularly helped them around here is the fact that they have ABS braking. They are the only team with anti-lock braking. And you may indeed wonder why something which is common on many road cars hasn't found its way to be virtually universal in Formula One. And the answer is two things. One, the fact that the racing driver's right foot and judgment is a lot finer and better than the average road driver. But secondly, too, anti-lock braking systems are complicated, and that means weight, and teams are very reluctant to put on more weight if it's not necessarily going to help. So to get the system working finely and being light at the same time has taken a lot of doing, and only Williams have done it so far.
And you're with Damon Hill in the Williams now. You can compare the performance for yourself of the Williams Renault with the Ferrari chassis and Ferrari engine of 3rd place man Gerhard Berger, who Damon Hill is shaping up to pass and to lap. Hill on his 36th lap. Patrese is still 52 seconds behind the Williams Renault, and there is the 3rd place man. And Hill has already lapped this battle between Warwick, Brundle and Martini for 4th, 5th and 6th places, with Johnny Herbert storming along behind them. And Damon coming down out of the long right-hander now, into the start and finish straight, up into 6th gear at 170 miles an hour. He's going to go through here. Yes, Berger lets him. Berger makes no attempt to shut the door. And Gerhard Berger, 3rd place in the Ferrari, has been lapped by Damon Hill, who's now got Ukio Katayama's Tyrrell in front of him. And Katayama is in 15th position, and of course has been lapped already. So Hill climbing now up to turn 4, the left-hander, 120 miles an hour. I saw some dust there. Has somebody gone off? If so, it's probably Katayama. No, he hasn't. There he is. And you can see how the Williams Renault is pulling away now into the chicane. This is pretty slow, about 60 miles an hour, 2nd gear. Accelerate up to 100 miles an hour, 125, round the left-hander here. 100 miles an hour, the 3rd gear, right-hander. Now he speeds up to 150 miles an hour in 5th gear as he approaches turn 10, the right-hander. 125 miles an hour. Now he's building up to 150 in 5th gear. This is turn 11, 100 miles an hour. And he's coming down to one of the slowest corners on the circuit, 2nd gear, 60 miles an hour, turn 12, through to the double right-hander, turns 13 and 14 at 80 miles an hour, builds up speed to another 170 miles an hour at the end of the lap, but it's a different lap. Last time he had Gerhard Berger in front of him, this time the Austrian is behind him. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars going through. It's De Cesaris holding up Warwick, Brundle and Martini. and there goes the Tyrrell. Past goes Derek Warwick, who I remind you is in 4th place, and it's a long time since Derek has been up in the points like this, because the Englishman has been out of Grand Prix racing in sports cars for some time, and the Tyrrell moves over and lets all 3 of them through. So Warwick, Brundle and Martini are showing how difficult it is to pass cars of comparable calibre, and you will have noticed that Johnny Herbert is closed up right behind now, and he is pushing very hard indeed. Johnny Herbert in the Lotus Ford. As you look across the Hungaro ring, it's one of the few circuits where a spectator in the right position, and there are plenty of positions here where you can see right the way round the circuit, or the vast majority of it. And we're on lap 38 out of 77. Warwick 4th, Brundle 5th. In the background, Pierluigi Martini in 6th position.
Yes, and beyond that, back in 9th place, we've got Mark Blundell in the second of the Ligiers. He's having a fierce battle with Wendlinger for 8th place there. So it looks like it's being a very good race for Britain, with all 5 British drivers up there at the moment. Now here's the real battle. Warwick in front, Brundle behind in the Ligier, and then Martini in the Minardi there. Now Martin Brundle with the Renault V10 engine has actually got, he's got a fair power advantage, perhaps 50 horsepower, 60 horsepower probably over Derek Warwick. He's also got a straight line speed advantage, as you would expect. In the warm-up session again, his car was about 3 or 4 miles an hour faster, which should help him. But of course it's great to see Derek Warwick up there having the best race of his year so far, particularly after that horrendous crash he had at Hockenheim. And in fact I spoke to him about that this weekend, and he said that his crash helmet was actually cracked as a consequence of that, and he was all for jumping straight back in the car without any rest period at all until Sid Watkins, who's the Grand Prix Medical Supremo, showed him the state of his crash helmet, and he had second thoughts for a while. But obviously he's a tough guy, is Derek, and he came back and certainly going very well at the moment in that footwork. The footwork car using the McLaren active suspension. In fact, McLaren sold them the active suspension this year, and they're using it to very good effect, and this is their best race so far.
Yes, and what's interesting me is that you're seeing a footwork with active suspension and a Mugen engine, a Ligier with passive suspension and a Renault engine, and the Minardi with passive suspension and a Ford customer engine, all lapping in almost exactly the same time in 4th, 5th and 6th position as they go through to complete their 39th lap, because Damon Hill, don't forget, is lapping people left, right and centre. The Englishman now is 51 seconds ahead of Riccardo Patrese. There are only 2 people on the same lap, and we're at half distance now, and that is a Lotus that's spun, and it's Johnny Herbert, and he's out of the race. He's not moving, so even if he hasn't stalled his engine, he's going to have to be pushed. Now here's a replay of what happened then. Herbert goes into the right-hander and just loses it, and that's the corner where a lot of people went off in practice. There's a bump there, and it's very easy, if you get your line just marginally wrong, to spin off and out, as Johnny Herbert did. So Herbert out, Schumacher out, Alesi out, Senna out, Andretti out, Prost out and Barrichello out.
As we watch Herbert for a second time on the slow motion, he really should have stopped the car moving then, and he may well not. You see, he's actually beached the car across the curb. These cars only have a very low ground clearance. The ground clearance underneath is a mere 1.5 inches. And there's one of the, that looks like Alboreto out in the Lola car. But, you know, Johnny could perhaps have saved that if he'd locked on the brakes, stopped the car rolling back as far as it did. He could then have not had the car beached on its belly and been able to continue. But incidentally, this year the regulations have been changed, and that if your engine is still running, you can still be pushed and stay in the race. Whereas last year, if you had to have a push, whereas last year, in fact, the engine could have stalled, and if the engine was bump started in the course of getting you away from a difficult situation, you could carry on, but no more for that.
Yes, Alain Prost is still technically in the race. Actually, he's in 19th position, but he's rejoined, but he's 7 laps behind. So unless there is real decimation amongst the remaining competitors, I can't see Prost finishing in the points, even somebody of his ability and experience. And we're on lap 41 now in this 77-lap race, with a lot of major contenders having retired. A long time, well, way still to go. We're with Damon Hill, and he's out of turn 5 to complete the lap now. And across the line he goes. So he's into his 42nd lap, 55 seconds ahead of Riccardo Patrese. And Damon's only problem is reliability now, because Riccardo Patrese, nearly a minute behind, cannot hope to close the gap between himself and the Englishman, as Warwick 4th, Brundle 5th, and Martini 6th, getting a bit spread out now. Jonathan, you've driven this course in a race. Now, how close do you have to get to a car in front before its turbulence starts adversely to affect the handling of your car?
Well, certainly no closer than we can see Martin Brundle there following Derek Warwick. Yes, I've done 4 Grand Prix on the circuit, and it's very, very hard work physically. But it looks on the face of it as if Martin's not quite quick enough to be up with Derek Warwick, but that really is not the case. If Derek wasn't there, I'm sure that Martin could lap quicker. The problem is, the closer you get, you start to have the otherwise clean air that your car would be getting being upset by the turbulent air that's swirling out of the back of the car ahead. And that swirling air means that your own wings can't work properly. You don't get the downforce, you don't get the grip, and so you can't corner as fast. It's as simple as that. But actually, looking at these now, that's the passive suspension on the Ligier car, the passive suspension on the Minardi, but the active suspension on the footwork there. And it's probably just a word of explanation, perhaps, about the difference. Suspension is essentially there to allow the car to cope with bumps. Now, on a passive suspension car, which is the sort of suspension which you or I have on our normal road cars, when the wheel encounters a bump, the force of the bump pushes up against the resistance of the spring, and then as the bump goes by, the spring pushes the wheel back down on the road again. Now, with active suspension, when the wheel encounters a bump, a sensor detects that a bump is there. That sends a signal back to a computer. The computer then commands a hydraulic strut to shorten, to lift the wheel up over the bump, and then the strut is then commanded to put the wheel down again. And so the action of the wheels going up and down is positive or active. It's controlled by a computer from sensors, and these sensors indeed can also be used to counteract or compensate for the effects of roll. When the car goes around a corner normally, it rolls obviously to a very little extent on a racing car, but more on a road car. When you brake hard, the nose goes down. Now, all of those things take away aerodynamic efficiency. The car produces less downforce when it rolls or when the nose goes down. So again, using these sensors with the active suspension, the car can be kept at a very flat ride height, a very low ride height all the time. That means more downforce, and that means more grip.
Lap 44, only 2 drivers on the same lap, and they are Damon Hill and Riccardo Patrese with 55 seconds between them. Gerhard Berger is still in 3rd position in the Ferrari, and there are 7 different constructors in the top 7 places, a very healthy sign, because it's a Williams leading, a Benetton 2nd, a Ferrari 3rd, a Footwork 4th, a Ligier in 5th position, a Minardi in 6th place, and a Sauber in 7th position, with Aguri Suzuki's Footwork in 8th position. So the Footwork team is doing extremely well. They've got both their cars in the top 8, which is more than any of their rivals have. And Damon Hill is on his 44th lap, and a big spin there. And as I speak, it would of course be a Footwork, wouldn't it? And it's Aguri Suzuki who is spinning there now. I don't know whether he managed to keep his engine running, in which case he will still be in the fray, and hopefully we'll be able to see soon either the car stationary or on the move. But that's Katayama's Tyrrell being caught by Derek Warwick to lap it. Derek Warwick has got Martin Brundle right behind him. Brundle in 5th place, Warwick in 4th. And this could give Martin Brundle the opportunity that he wants to get past Derek Warwick. If Derek Warwick gets his timing and positioning wrong, to lap Katayama, who's a bit unpredictable and given to spinning off at the slightest provocation. So Warwick goes through and completes the lap. So it's Katayama about to be lapped by Warwick. Martin Brundle closing up in 5th position, seeing his opportunity, but Derek knows perfectly well that there's an opportunity for Martin Brundle as well. This is Derek Warwick's 142nd Grand Prix. He's been around a long time and he knows the score. And both of them are easing away from Pierluigi Martini's Minardi, and he is 20 seconds ahead of Wendlinger Sauber, 7th. And Mark Blundell is gaining on Wendlinger. He's only 2 seconds behind him. Mark Blundell is 8th in the Ligier, Wendlinger is 7th, and Martin Brundle has another go, closes right up to Warwick at the chicane, and hats off to Katayama actually, because he's succeeding in keeping the footwork and the Ligier behind him, stopping them from coming up close enough to draft him, pull out of his slipstream and lap him. And the position remains. And meantime, Pierluigi Martini can see a chance too, because you will notice that the gap between his white Minardi and the blue Ligier that you're looking at of Martin Brundle has been reduced, and Suzuki is out of the race. Aguri Suzuki in the second footwork retires. Now, Katayama across the line, and Derek Warwick will be right up with him, I think, at the end of the lap. He is. So with Suzuki out of the race, that means to say that Mark Blundell is in 8th position now, Philippe Alliot is in 9th place, Eric Comas is 10th, Zanardi is 11th, Thierry Boutsen is in 12th position. Damon Hill is still there, don't worry, he's on lap 46 now.
Yes, he's still there at the moment, but actually I think we could well see Damon come into the pits for that second set of tyres sometime in the next 3 laps. He's got a very comfortable 56-second lead over Patrese, and I really don't think there's too much doubt about the Williams team ability to run the pit stop without a problem. So I think we can expect to see him, I shouldn't say things like that, I'm sure, but I think we can expect to see him come into the pits for that second set of tyres fairly soon now.
And Riccardo Patrese that you're looking at now is, as Jonathan forecast it, so Damon complies and comes into the pits for his second tyre stop. He's making absolutely sure that he's got the maximum amount of grip that he needs for the rest of the race. He's got a gigantic cushion, of course, which enables him to come in. Heaven knows what that idiot was doing running across the pit lane there. And I would expect there to be some disciplinary action, because I doubt if he's got the necessary pass. And anyway, Damon Hill has made his second tyre stop, and he did so against a background of having a 56-second lead, and that is Alain Prost, of course, who's surging his way up through the field. But whilst he's passing a lot of people, he's got such a distance to make up. When he got going again, he was 7 laps behind. He's doing it for his pride and in hope. And we're with Damon Hill, lap 47, 77-lap race, 30 laps to go. Just observe the line he takes.
Yes, as you watch this flowing manoeuvre of Damon's as he winds his way on his fresh set of tyres, warming them up around the circuit, it might look very easy, but, you know, really, he's being subjected to up to 3G at peaks all the way around here. He's being subjected to more than 1G for 70% of the lap. And when you think that your own road car being driven absolutely on the limit might be able to reach 0.7 or 0.8 of a G, it gives you some idea of how physical that is. Now, for the driver to cope with that, he has to have his seat, of course, tailored to his exact body shape. He has to also have every bit of his body that can be padded to stop it literally flopping around in the cockpit. And that particularly means his legs. He will undoubtedly have sufficient padding down the sides of his legs so that his knees are just perhaps 1 centimetre apart, just enough to allow him to operate the pedals. Because without that, if he had perhaps a 2-inch gap, for example, his legs would flop around, and that would take a lot of energy, a lot of effort, and make driving particularly tiring for him. It's all about trying to reduce the amount of effort you're putting in, which means supporting the body as much as you can. You know, in this sort of situation, he's probably going to be losing a litre of fluid an hour. It's a 2-hour race. That's 2 litres lost as Blundell comes into the pits, and this could be his chance to get by Wendlinger.
Yes, Mark Blundell running well. He's in 8th position. When Jonathan said this could be his chance to get past Wendlinger, it may have seemed a bit strange since he was coming to a standstill. But the obvious thing is that now that he's on new rubber, he's going to have better grip. He'll be able to go a lot faster. He had a very bad getaway and therefore a poor pit stop. But Riccardo Patrese is still going strong. And he's got the problem that Damon Hill ahead of him has had, and that is threading his way past tail-enders. And Riccardo with a virtually guaranteed 6 points in the bag if he could just keep going for his highest finish of the year so far, because he's had a third and a fourth and a couple of fifths, but he hasn't had a second yet, will be being very circumspect indeed. He will know perfectly well how far he is behind Damon Hill, and that is 38 seconds. And out goes Alessandro Zanardi to join the other retirements, and the Italian, who had several spins in practice, has obviously gone off for some reason here. And into the pits comes JJ Leto, the Finnish driver. It's Carl Wendlinger, my apologies, Carl Wendlinger, the Austrian driver. A lot of his countrymen here, because the Hungarian Grand Prix is in effect the home Grand Prix for the two Austrian drivers, Gerhard Berger and Carl Wendlinger. Wendlinger in 7th position. He's a long way behind Pierluigi Martini. He will be even further behind now, but this may be, on the one hand, an insurance policy stopping for tyres, and on the other hand, a gamble that losing time in the pits will help him to gain time on the circuit and get into the points before the race ends. Wendlinger, who has already had one 6th position finish in Canada this year, to score one of Sauber's 5 points, the other 5 having been scored by his teammate JJ Leto. And Damon Hill now on his 49th lap is coming up, as you can see for yourselves, behind the Ferrari. And into the pits comes Ukio Katayama, the man from Tokyo, ex-Formula 3000 champion of Japan. And with Katayama, I suspect, comes the Yamaha V10 engine, which powers the Tyrrell team's 2 cars, his and Andrea De Cesaris's. And Damon Hill now is 40 seconds ahead of Riccardo Patrese on his 49th lap. Damon Hill is coming up behind the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger, who is in 3rd position, to lap him again, because he's already done it once, you remember, and then he's come in and taken on new tyres, which will have allowed Gerhard Berger to unlap himself. And past De Cesaris now on the inside. There was someone coming out of the pits. Now, that is a very difficult situation.
Yes, it is indeed. It's always difficult to know what's going to happen in those sort of situations. Drivers are supposed to keep to the right when they emerge from the pit line. There is no traffic light system. There's nothing actually preventing a driver from coming out of the pits at completely racing speed. And indeed, it wouldn't work if there was. So it does rely on drivers giving room. But of course, in that situation, when you've got somebody trying to overtake, and that looks like a problem for Boutsen in the Jordan car. Looks like he's getting away. Maybe a gear selection problem, which we saw, in fact, from Mark Blundell as well. Now, there you can see the debris on the circuit on the left-hand side there as we watch Patrese there on the way to his best result of the year. And indeed, I don't think from talking to Flavio Briatore, he said today that, or said yesterday, in fact, that he and Patrese had agreed that their contract that was due to run until next year, by mutual agreement, that they would both be free to pursue other alternatives next year, which I think is a very polite way of saying that Patrese will not be with the team. I suspect that it will be a young driver who will replace him. But the other big rumour here for the weekend is that Renault, or rather that Benetton, are talking to Renault about an engine supply for next year. Now, I don't think, in fact, there's too much substance to it, but that's been one of the main stories of the weekend.
Well, you ought to know that there's a wild rumour too that Damon Hill has signed for Benetton, but that is vehemently denied, and I would be very, very, very surprised. He's leading now on his 52nd lap, and he is 38 seconds ahead of Riccardo Patrese. Well, 6 points seemingly for the Italian, which could be his response to having been politely shown the door at the end of the season. One has to wonder whether Riccardo Patresi's illustrious career is drawing to a close. After a long time with Williams, he was bitterly disappointed. He's coming into the pits now for his second tyre stop, and he is in second place now. He is a long way ahead of Gerhard Berger, and he is rejoining still in second position. Now, so Riccardo Patrese in second position, and I want to effect an introduction. I'm very sad to effect it, but for those old sparring partners to have another chat, they being Johnny Herbert, who is retired, and Jonathan Palmer.
Johnny, hi, are you with us?
Hello again.
Johnny, wasn't it a bit of a case of same place, different lap compared to last year?
Say that again, sorry.
Wasn't it a case of the same place? Didn't you spin off at the same place last year? I seem to remember on lap 1, but clearly having got a bit further this year.
Well, I got round the corner last year, so I actually did it going in this time. But it was just a problem. We have a data box in the car, and it dislodged itself, and it jammed my arm against the steering wheel, and I couldn't turn the steering wheel. So I just went in there, then the brakes obviously locked, so I had to stop, and I just couldn't catch the thing.
Johnny, one thing I did wonder about was that it seemed that the car rolled back, and that caused you to end up beached across the curb. Was there any chance, in fact, of you putting on the brakes to try and stop that? And I have to be honest with you, I suggested that if you put your foot on the brakes, you may not have ended up in that situation. You possibly could have continued.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. But the problem was it had stalled as I'd done the spin, so it wasn't actually running as I rolled off, so I just tried to get out of the way. Right,
well, I'm glad you made that point. So there's nothing you could have done. You would have been out of the race anyway. Just a minute, I've got Murray for you.
Thank you.
Johnny, I know you were using at least I believe you were using the traction control for the first time. Was it making a big difference to the performance of the Lotus?
Yeah, it's the first time we've really actually run it properly all weekend. We've switched it on a couple of times, but not actually during the qualifying run. This time we had it on right from the beginning. It's ridiculous how much difference it makes on the start. And on the circuit as well, it just makes the driving a lot easier. It's a good thing it's going, and it does make a difference. And it's not perfect at the moment, but we're getting there, which is a good thing.
Good news. We do wish you were going. We can only say your time will come, and I've no doubt that you're going to finish in the points, hopefully on the rostrum this season, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
And now we're on lap 54 with Damon Hill still well out. He's a whole lap now in front of Riccardo Patrese, who is in second position. And the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th between Derek Warwick, Martin Brundle and Pierluigi Martini continues, and you're watching it. And this is a perfect illustration of the fact that if you've got a car of comparable performance to the one in front of you, which Martin Brundle in his Ligier Renault clearly has, with the footwork Mugen of Derek Warwick in front of him, it is very, very difficult to get past at the Hungaroring. These three have been driving round in line astern formation for a long, long time. There's Martini in the background, the little Italian in the white Minardi Ford. He comes from Lavezzola, and he will be absolutely overjoyed if he finishes in 6th position to score a point for the Minardi team, because his teammate is Christian Fittipaldi, one of the youngest drivers in the race. And Damon Hill now is on his 55th lap, 22 laps to go. Gerhard Berger has stopped a second time for tyres, so that means to say that the Austrian is going to have an even greater gap between himself and Riccardo Patrese. And on lap 55 out of 77, Damon Hill leads a whole lap ahead of Riccardo Patrese. We're with Hill now, and that 1:20.4 is 1.9 seconds slower than Nigel Mansell's lap record. Riccardo Patrese second, Gerhard Berger is in third position, Derek Warwick, Brundle and Martini 4th, 5th and 6th, and in 7th position Philippe Alliot in the La Rousse. He has a chance of scoring a point. And as I speak, into the pits he comes for new tyres. That could give Carl Wendlinger the opportunity in the Sauber to move up into 7th place, and Mark Blundell even to move up into 8th place in the second Ligier, with Eric Comas behind Blundell. So both the Larousses are running well. And Derek Warwick now is in 3rd position. Derek Warwick in a rostrum place. I can't remember when he finished there last. He's still got a long way to go. Reliability is going to be the name of the game now for the Williams-Renault leading this Benetton Ford of Riccardo Patrese in 2nd place. Derek Warwick's footwork. Martin Brundle is 4th. Martini is 5th because Gerhard Berger, with that second tyre stop, has dropped to 6th position in the Ferrari.
Yes, I somehow think, Murray, that Derek's 3rd place at the moment will be rather short-lived, because Berger, of course, pitted for that second set of tyres. He's now lapping in 1:21.8 compared to Derek's 25.2. So he's over 3 seconds faster, and he's a mere 5 seconds behind. So I think he'll be carving his way through fairly quickly. But even so, you know, as we saw earlier on, that a driver can be 3 seconds a lap slower than somebody following, and for it still to be very difficult for the guy behind to get by. So there, all the marbles again. Patrese being followed by one of the Ligiers there. Mark Blundell actually is just 5 seconds behind Wendlinger now. He did drop back down to 9. Clearly not quite on the same pace, but not far off that of Martin Brundle. And what's interesting about these races, you know, at the end of the race, despite the fact that we're apparently looking at healthy cars, the chances are very high that 9 out of 10 of them will have some kind of problem. We're watching Derek Warwick. He may complain about too much understeer. Martin Brundle may say that his brakes weren't quite right. The chances, it hardly ever happens that any of these drivers get out of a car and say, my car was perfect, I just did the best job I could.
There's Berger, and you can see now, Jonathan's just pointed out that he's on new tyres. I've got very divided loyalties here, as a lot of people will have, because as I've said many times before, everybody wants to see Ferrari back at the front, just as much as we want to see Derek Warwick, Martin Brundle and Martini doing well. Well, that is Martini, there is Berger. Berger is in 6th position, and he's closing on Martini in 5th position. He's going to get past him soon, I think. And there's a traffic jam. Derek Warwick, and out of the race goes Eric Comas in the Larousse. That's Comas, the Frenchman, walking away in the multicoloured overalls. I always think as though he's wearing 2 other people's overalls for that peculiar colour scheme. And Derek Warwick now. Brundle is on a charge again. Martin Brundle in 4th position behind the footwork Mugen. And Derek Warwick, with the prospect of being on the rostrum with the champagne, is not going to give up his place easily. By the same token, Martin Brundle, who has already had a 3rd place this year because he finished there in the San Marino Grand Prix, will be determined to get it. So Berger is past Martini. Gerhard Berger is up into 5th position. His next target is the 4th place of Martin Brundle and the 3rd place of Derek Warwick. There they are. Brundle 4th. Warwick ahead of him in 3rd position. Behind them is Berger. Into the pits comes Alain Prost. And he's in 14th position for the record, but he's still 7 laps adrift. But I'm quite sure that what he'll be doing is keeping going, because while there's life, there's hope, and you never know how many retirements that there are going to be in front of you. He could still be in the points.
Well, I think it's pretty unlikely, actually, Murray. I mean, Prost is now 3 minutes behind. He's got no real chance of getting any more than perhaps 12th place at the best. He lost that much time in the pits, and he can never make it up on the circuit. But I'm sure what he is doing, by continuing to lap, he's contributing to further knowledge for the Williams team. He may even discover something about the tyres, about the car, that could help Damon's victory. From the data logging equipment, the telemetry, the messages being sent back from Prost's car. It's very much a team effort at every team, but particularly Williams. And I'm sure that's why he's continuing to run. But what could be interesting now is that we've got Gerhard Berger closing up rapidly behind Warwick and Brundle there. Now, Martin will be probably looking for the chance for Berger's attempt to go by him. I suspect Martin will let Berger by relatively easily. We shall have to see. But he's probably going to be waiting to see what sort of door opening happens with Derek Warwick, because if Derek lets Berger through, Martin will certainly see there's a chance to try and slip in. That's Martini pitching there. That's for Martini's second set of tyres there. It was a bit late to do that, really, so maybe he's had some kind of problem. I suspect that puts him out of the frame in that battle. But Martin's opportunity to get by Derek could well come from slipping through, as perhaps Berger uses his performance advantage from new tyres to do so himself.
Martini's sixth place should have been preserved because he was 38 seconds ahead of Wendlinger. But now Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari in fifth place is right up with the Brundle-Warwick battle for third. So it's V10 Mugen Footwork, V10 Renault Ligier, V12 Ferrari, and they are together battling for third position, and they're on lap 50 there, 58th lap. And exactly as John... Oh, and there's contact there. Gerhard Berger dives through, biffs Martin Brundle's Ligier. Berger ever the opportunist, but Martin Brundle, who is a forthright, outspoken chap, won't have taken to that very kindly. And there may well be an eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation between the man from South Wootton near Kingsley. Now, here's a replay. Martin Brundle in the blue Ligier goes a bit wide, starts to turn in, suddenly sees Berger alongside him. Berger's right rear hits Martin's left front, and hopefully that will not have deranged the Ligier suspension, but there's no guarantee.
Well, I very much hope so too. That was very, very unfortunate for Martin Brundle there. You could see him look across. As I suspected, he left some room for Gerhard to go through. He left him room on the entrance of the corner, and he left him room halfway going round. But Gerhard left his braking a little too late, and having turned in initially okay, he then almost speared into the side of Martin's car. The impact wasn't too great. Let's hope it wasn't great enough to cause any damage to either. But really, that was Gerhard's mistake. Martin left the door open, but Gerhard really came in a bit too quickly and couldn't maintain the line that Martin had left for him.
And now Berger is thirsting after third position, and the man who's got it is Derek Warwick, one of the toughest, most experienced campaigners in Grand Prix racing, and he'll see the car from Maranello, the scarlet and white projectile, the Ferrari, in his mirrors, and I do not think that Derek Warwick is going to be able to keep Gerhard Berger back. Now, is there a power differential? Is there a power advantage for the Ferrari? Well, Berger closes up a bit. Derek Warwick closes the door. The Tyrrell is still in front of them. And that is Andre de Cesaris, who puts his left rear off the course. Now, there's grass growing right up to the edge of the tarmac here, and it's in very sandy soil. And you've only got to put a wheel an inch off the line at the edge of the track, and you raise a lot of dust, and it goes straight into the visor of the driver behind. That's what Andrea de Cesaris did just there, and he's still ahead of the battle for third position. Damon Hill, meantime, is on lap 61 out of 77. He's leading Riccardo Patrese by an enormous margin now. You're watching the battle for third between Derek Warwick and Gerhard Berger, footwork of Ferrari, following Andrea de Cesaris, who is in 12th position, 5 laps behind, and in 5th position it is Brundle, as you know. Martini is still in 6th place. He's still ahead of Wendlinger, having come in and taken on his second set of tyres, and Berger is attacking everywhere he can. They're just coming through to complete the lap, and he should be tucked up under the wing of Warwick's footwork and looking for his chance to pass for third.
Yes, he certainly should be, but by attacking at the corner before, which really wasn't going to be on, he lost the chance to be in the right place at the right time, and that's now. You see, he's having a look. If he'd been right behind Warwick out of that last corner, he could almost certainly have got through. So, you know, a little bit of wild driving there from Gerhard, not perhaps thinking as much about it as he should be. But further back, it does sadly look as if Martin might have had some minor degree of suspension damage, and that's something gone off there. That looked like a Minardi to me. I sincerely hope it's not Martini, because he was flying. He was lapping 2 seconds faster than Brundle, and he was 19 seconds behind. Yes, I'm afraid that is Minardi. That is the Minardi of Pierluigi Martini. What a sad end. He was absolutely flying, perhaps flying just a bit too much. So, still we have the battle there with Berger, who really has got to get it right this time. He should be helped by the fact that Warwick's going to be perhaps a little bit out-fumbled or distracted, shall we say, by the Tyrrell ahead. but he really needs to get it sorted out on the next time through the main straight. Oh, there we go. There we go. That is Oh, that's a big accident there from Martini. It looked like he simply lost it. He was probably just trying too hard, gotten too enthusiastic on the new set of tyres.
And one of the Tyrrells just avoided that accident. I just saw the car disappearing through the picture. Whether it was Hill or Prost, I don't know. But here is Berger, still pushing. Now another lap completed. Now, Warwick has to get past De Cesaris. He's done it. Can he put De Cesaris between himself and Gerhard Berger? No, he can't, because De Cesaris stays on the left of the circuit, sees the Ferrari bearing down on him, miles an hour faster, moves across, and into the pits, meantime, comes Martin Brundle from 5th position. Now, to be honest, I'm not clear about the gap between Martin Brundle and Wendlinger. Martin Brundle rejoins in 5th place before Wendlinger goes through, and Berger is still in the wheel tracks of 3rd placed Derek Warwick.
Now, that was the right thing to do for Martin Brundle, I'm quite sure. I suspect, in fact, that his problem was not a deranged suspension, but by going offline, as Berger forced him to do, by going offline, I don't know what we're about to look at here, and that is Martini once again. You see, he gets very sideways, the car's in the curve, he hits the tyre wall in front of the Armco barrier, very hard broadside, the tyres go in the air, the car is thrown back, but they do an outstanding job at absorbing the impact. He was probably doing some 130 miles an hour before he went off, and probably hit the barrier at about 100 miles an hour. But back to Martin Brundle, he almost certainly, by being forced off by Gerhard then, would have picked up a lot of debris on his tyres, and that would have done two things. It would have lost him grip in the short term, that's why we saw him drop back, but secondly, probably some of it would have stayed on, and that could have given him a vibration. Now, the right thing to do in that situation was to come into the pit, put a fresh set on, and he might yet, even with 14 laps to go, he might just have a chance of getting back up on Derek, particularly if Derek spends a little bit of time keeping Gerhard behind him, as I expect he will do. I'm sure that having held off Gerhard now for some 5 laps, that he probably reckons that he could well do it for another 14 and take that 3rd place.
And Damon Hill is still going strong. He is on lap 64 out of 77, still with a very comfortable gap between himself and Riccardo Patrese. But as a result of Pierluigi Martini going off when he was 6th, up into that position has come Carl Wendlinger Sauber. He is ahead of Mark Blundel's Ligier, so the Ligiers now are 5th and 7th, Brundle and Blundell. Philippe Alliot is in 8th position in his Larousse. 9th is Thierry Boutsen, 2 laps down in the Jordan Hart. 10th is Katayama, 11th is Martini, 12th is De Cesaris, 13th is Alain Prost, 7 laps behind. 13 runners out of the 26 who started, according to the new rules, instead of 25, a sop to the Lola Ferrari Scuderia Italia team. And Derek Warwick goes through to complete his 64th lap. Meantime, Damon Hill is on his 65th lap, and the battle for 3rd place continues. Way out in front of these two, but a long way behind race leader Damon Hill, who is leading a Grand Prix for the 7th time this year, and this is the 11th race, and Damon has already finished 2nd 4 times this season, in Brazil, in Donington, Monaco and France. So Riccardo Patrese looks like occupying that position, with Berger looking all the time for the 4 points for 3rd place. His highest position this year, Gerhard Berger, was a 4th position in Canada. He's looking for 3rd in Hungary.
Now, all Gerhard should be doing now is just following Warwick carefully along. He needs to position himself to be right up behind at this last corner, and that he's yet to do. We saw the last lap. He nearly had a look at the inside of Warwick on the way into that first corner. And in fact, Derek left the door open reasonably wide. But here's the hairpin, 1 more corner to go. This is where Berger needs to be right up behind Warwick. Now let's see what happens. He's in the dirty air for sure. That won't help the grip of the car. He still looks a bit too far away, although he looks closer this lap. He might have a chance this lap. Now let's see what happens. No, he's going to have to do a very wild outbraking maneuver to do it. He has a go, and well, he's through. Now he is through.
And the Austrian crowd here go absolutely berserk. I know we're in Hungary, but Austria is virtually just down the road, there are an enormous number of enthusiastic Austrian Formula One Grand Prix fans here, and they have seen Gerhard Berger go through and retake the third position he had earlier on, just surging past on the inside of Martin Brundle. And I do suspect that when we hear from Martin after the race, having just lost that position to Derek Warwick, that Derek may well have had some sort of a problem. Martin Brundle, of course, in 5th position. Hill is now completing his 66th lap. He is on lap 67 in this 77-lap race. And as I've said before, there he is. You see, he's coming up to lap Riccardo Patrese in the Benetton Ford. So Damon has driven and is driving an absolutely immaculate race. I remind you that he started effectively from pole position after, amazingly, his teammate and team leader Alain Prost, who after 2 days of practice and fighting hard had got that pole position for the 10th time this season, incredibly stalled his engine and failed to get away for the parade lap, as a result of which he started 26th instead of in pole position. And Damon seized that opportunity and he hasn't looked back since.
I was a little surprised to see Warwick leave quite that amount of room for Berger then, as Berger went through, and Berger used the straight line speed advantage of his Ferrari to pull up and get alongside, or certainly approach being alongside in the braking zone, but there's still quite a big gap there. But further back, we've got, on the face of it, a very good result coming for Ligier, because apart from Martin Brundle in 5th place, we've got Blundell, Mark Blundell, who's now right on the tail of Wendlinger Sauber, as they've got now just 12 laps to go. So with the way he's progressing, I think there's a very good chance of it being a Ligier 5th and 6th. We've got Brundle really going well now on a new set of tyres too, though I think he's probably too far behind. He's some 18 seconds now, or 18 seconds behind Warwick, so I don't see him having a chance of wresting that 4th place.
Well, there's the race leader. The car ahead is the Benetton Ford of Riccardo Patrese, and Damon Hill will know perfectly well from his pits to car telemetry and radio, which are going to be banned next year, incidentally, that it's Riccardo Patrese who is second to him, and that he, Damon, is actually leading the Italians Benetton by some 2.4 miles with 10 laps to go. But, well, less than 10 laps. He's on his 68th lap now. Damon Hill leading Patrese by a full lap, as near as makes very little difference. Gerhard Berger has been lapped by Damon Hill and is in 3rd position, easing away from Derek Warwick's footwork, which is 4th. Martin Brundle 5th in the Ligier. 6th is Carl Wendlinger Sauber. So it's Williams, Benetton, Ferrari, footwork, Ligier, Sauber. Then the second Ligier in 7th place of Mark Blundell. Down to 8th has gone Philippe Alliot in the Larousse. 9th is Boutsen, 10th is Katayama, 11th is De Cesaris. And I'm just trying to think while I talk to you whether both Tyrrells have finished in a race at all this season. We've had one driver finish, but not the other. I can't remember an occasion when both of them have finished, which they look as though they're going to do now. In 12th position is Alain Prost, still going strong, and he is the last runner out of the 26 who started. And the man you watch, Damon Hill, is on lap 69. The man who started his racing career on motorcycles, the Brands Hatch champion of 1984, then to Formula Ford, where he finished 3rd in the Formula Ford Festival. 3 years in Formula 3, where he won races. 2 years in Formula 3000, where he did not. Then he got this chance of a lifetime to be the test driver for the Williams-Renault team, as a result of which he not only demonstrated his talent to Frank Williams and Patrick Head, but won their respect and confidence, as a result of which they gave him the work to drive this year, after Patrese had left the team at their request to go to Benetton and Nigel Mansell had gone to Indy Racing. 2 new drivers in the Williams-Renault team. One of them has not done well here today, Alain Prost, but at least he's got the consolation of having won 7 times this year. And the other, Damon Hill, who has certainly risen to the opportunity.
Yes, he's driven a masterful race, really, and I don't think he should allow anything to detract from that, and certainly not the fact that Prost wasn't there challenging him, possibly ahead, possibly behind. You know, for the last 3 Grand Prix, it's been Damon who's led off the line, so there's every chance to expect Damon to have led off the line here and to have possibly held off Prost. I'm sure that it could have been possible, because indeed, although Prost was on pole position, one of the things that they do here, such as the sophistication of the timing devices that every lap these drivers do, particularly in qualifying, is divided up to 3 components, the partial times as we call it. And by adding up the best of each of these 3 components, one can work out what was the theoretical ideal best time of each driver. Now, under that policy, doing that, Damon Hill, in fact, could have set the fastest time, because his components added up to be a faster lap time than Prost, so he could have been on the pole. But everything going very well for Damon at the moment. Interesting, if you look at the little telemetry aerial on the front of the car there, you can see that around this corner, you see it bending left as the G-force even affects the little tiny aerial. Such is the force that he's being exposed to, it's not just the aerial. You can also see the little flashing lights there, the gear change indicator lights. Of course, it's automatic. But even that little windscreen, the perspex screen there, it might look so small, it really doesn't matter. But the design of that is very important to reduce the level of turbulence inside the cockpits of these open cars, because essentially he's sitting outside in the airstream at up to 170 miles an hour. But anything that can be done to make the driver's life a little bit easier is done, particularly by teams of the standard of Williams and McLaren.
Damon Hill on his 71st lap out of 77, commandingly leading the Hungarian Grand Prix. But let us remember the people who started, several of them with a chance of victory, but who have retired. Rubens Barrichello, of course, out on the first lap as a result of a coming together of some sort, which ripped a front wheel off his car. Then Michael Andretti, yet another retirement for the unfortunate American. Ayrton Senna out just 2 laps later, the man who is second in the World Championship, the winner of 3 races this year, the man with the best record of all in Hungary, having won 3 times and finished second 4 times. Jean Alesi out in the Ferrari, straight into the Armco, but he's all right. Michael Schumacher out with an engine problem. Johnny Herbert out with, as you heard, a loose component rattling about in the cockpit, which trapped his arm and prevented him from taking the corner. Michele Alboreto out in the Lola. Aguri Suzuki out in the footwork. Zanardi out. So both Lotuses have retired, as have both McLarens. Eric Comas out. And you're watching the remaining Benetton Ford of Riccardo Patrese, who really does look as though he's going to be in second position. And that 1:17.049 is the distance, the time between him and Damon Hill. And when I tell you that Damon Hill has just lapped in 1:23.4, it means that he's only 6 seconds off lapping the man who is in second place that you're watching now. Hill is on his 72nd lap out of 77 now. Hill leads, Patrese second. Berger in the Ferrari is in third position, and he is now 17 seconds ahead of Derek Warwick, who is fourth. Brundle is coming back at Warwick because he's only 2 seconds behind the footwork. Martin Brundle in fifth position is attacking. Carl Wendlinger is in sixth place. The battle at the present moment in the top 6 is between Warwick, who is fourth, and Brundle, who is in fifth position, as Riccardo Patrese crosses the line. And that's the distance between him and race leader Damon Hill. They're actually on the same lap, but because Damon Hill has been going so quick in comparison with the Benetton, he has almost lapped Italian Riccardo Patrese on his way, Patrese, to 6 World Championship points for the first time this season, which will help his World Championship positioning. It won't actually close him up to Schumacher or Hill, whichever of them is going to be fourth at the end of this race, because it has still yet to be finished. And Damon Hill is on lap 73. So we have lap 74, lap 75, lap 76, lap 77 between Damon Hill and the end of the race. Patrese second, Berger third, Warwick fourth, Brundle fifth, and Wendlinger sixth. and hopefully we'll be able to have a look at Derek Warwick and Martin Brundle in respectively the Footwork Mugen and the Ligier Renault to see how their battle is going. But understandably, the producer is concentrating on the Williams here. Williams have won here 3 times. The 1986, the first Hungarian Grand Prix was won by Nelson Piquet, and he won again in 1987. And Damon Hill is now on lap 74 and leading.
Yes, of course, it was here last year that Nigel Mansell became world champion, finishing, I think, in 4th place after he had that slow puncture that brought him in his Williams. It has been a great circuit. In 2nd place, in fact, it was after his puncture. It has been a great circuit for Williams, and it looks to be, once again, a successful event for them. Now, I hope very much we're looking at the future of motor racing and probably a future world champion there with Damon Hill. And I'm very pleased to say that the Formula One governing body and certainly the teams have seemed to be in harmony about the regulations for the future, and that means next year. Over the past couple of weeks, the regulations have been agreed in principle. Active suspension is going, traction control and ABS are also going. But the big difference is that, apart from that, fuel stops will be permitted for the first time since 1983 next year, whilst in 1995 the weight limit will be changed to be 575, including the driver weight, whereas it's been 505 with the driver not being included. And cars from 1995 will have to accommodate drivers of up to 1 metre 90 centimetres.
Now, come on, Mr. Producer, let us have a look at Warwick and Brundle, because Derek Warwick is only half a second ahead of Martin Brundle now. We're still watching, and rightly so, Damon Hill coming through to complete another lap. He's now on his 75th lap out of 77. This lap, lap 76 and lap 77 to go. Patrese, of course, still smoothly and reliably in the Benetton 4, driving round a long way back, but just ahead of Damon Hill on the track in 2nd position. Gerhard Berger, a secure 3rd position if he just stays where he is. But who is going to be 4th is the question, and there is the answer, because at the present moment, thank you very much, it's Derek Warwick just ahead of Martin Brundle as they go through. This is the big battle in the race now. Martin Brundle is making his comeback. He's after 4th position, and the Englishman in the blue Ligier has had a 3rd and 2 fifths and a 6th this year. He's 7th in the championship with 9 points. But at the present moment, he is on 2 points for 5th position. If he can move up ahead of Warwick, who has, of course, been passed by Gerhard Berger with a memorable move, Berger in the Ferrari, Martin Brundle would gain an extra point. 3 points for 4th position instead of 2 points for 5th place. And Derek, as politely as possible, is making it as difficult as possible for Martin Brundle. And I have not forgotten Damon Hill. He's now not far off, coming through to complete his 75th lap to start his penultimate lap, lap 76 out of 77. I do not expect to change for 2nd. I do not expect to change for 3rd. There could be a change for 4th, because that is what you're looking at. Martin Brundle from South Wootton, Derek Warwick, who lives in Jersey, having been born and brought up at 4 Marks in Hampshire. And it looks to me as though he's got the measure of the Ligier, and I can tell you that as you see them go through, we join Damon Hill on his 76th lap. He's about halfway round it at the present moment. He's at the top of the circuit, going into the right-hander at turn 8, accelerating away to 150 miles an hour as he goes through to turns 9 and the right-hander at turn 10. 150 miles an hour now, dropping downhill to the hairpin left-hander turn 12. 2nd gear, 60 miles an hour. That's Gerhard Berger in 3rd position behind him, and of course he has been lapped. And Damon is coming through to start, to complete his 76th lap and to start his 77th and last lap in the lead in the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Well, I'm not going to make any prediction at all at this stage, but Damon has done a superb job. He got off the line first, he got into the lead, and that's not easy. He was on the wrong side of the circuit, and he had the likes of Senna and Schumacher around him. He then drove absolutely superbly all the way. He's got Berger, incidentally, who's just trying to unlap himself. Whether or not he will bother, I don't know. We'll have to watch while that goes on. But Damon's got everything right. Behind him, yes, he's letting Berger go by. That's very sensible. You know, Damon does not want anything to go wrong, clearly, here. It's going to be a very overdue win if he gets it, but thoroughly well-deserved. Behind that, Riccardo Patrese, well, he's largely inherited second place, it has to be said, but having said that, he's made no mistake. And that's not what happened last year when he led for Williams, but well out in front. He spun at the first corner, indeed, just about where Johnny Herbert, or the one after that, actually, where just after Johnny Herbert spun. Berger, very robust drive from him, very tough, and a very deserved third place, with Brundle not being able to take Warwick, but two very sterling drives from the British drivers.
Damon Hill is approaching the end of the last lap of the Hungarian Grand Prix. He's coming down to that slow left-hander, which is turn 12. Then he's only got to do the short run up to the double right, turns 13 and 14. Damon Hill exits the last turn at the Hungarian Grand Prix, and he does indeed see the checkered flag. And Damon Hill, as his great father Graham did before him, wins the Grand Prix, not here in Hungary, Graham, but Damon's first Grand Prix victory has been a brilliant one. And he knows it, and he shows his victory salute to the crowd. Well, Damon has driven an absolutely immaculate race after the bitter, bitter, cruel disappointment of having a win snatched from his hands in Britain and then in Germany, as Derek Warwick finishes in fourth position ahead of Martin Brundle. Damon Hill has indeed made it third time lucky here in Hungary. He scores his first 10 points for a Grand Prix victory, and by so doing moves back into third position in the World Championship ahead of Michael Schumacher. And we're now watching Riccardo Patrese in the sole remaining Benetton, and that's the distance between him and Damon Hill, who has been home a long time now in Grand Prix timing terms. But Patrese finishes in his highest place of the season, as has, of course, Damon Hill. Gerhard Berger, exactly the same situation, because the first three men have all had their highest finish of the year. In fact, the first four, because Derek Warwick is in fourth place. Martin Brundle finishes fifth for Ligier, and Carl Wendlinger gets that sole remaining World Championship point for Sauber. But this is the man of the race, the man of the day. He capitalised on Alain Prost's misfortune at the start and stayed in front all the way, and he has driven an absolutely superb, commanding race. Well, they always say that the first win is the most difficult one. Damon Hill has had his first win, and I'm sure we'll see him have many more well-deserved ones.
Yes, I'm sure that's right. He really has proven his ability against Prost, who's a fantastic yardstick by any reckoning. And indeed, actually, I've felt that over the past couple of races, when he's been apparently cheated of victory, shall we say, at Silverstone and Hockenheim, that in the end, that would only serve to toughen him up. You know, he will come away, I felt he's come away from particularly Hockenheim, really being annoyed and being angry about not having won. He felt it was deservedly his. And that's a very good attitude to come to a Grand Prix with, believing that you should be winning. It's a sort of attitude which someone like Senna has had for a very long time. And anything that can really help a driver, toughen him up, harden him up, and become more believing in his ability, and the fact that a win is rightfully his can only be a good thing for the long term. So I think we're going to see a lot of success, many more victories from Damon Hill in the future.
Team aan het begin van het jaar zag er ook lange tijd naar uit dat het wel zou gaan lukken. Maar het heeft allemaal, denk ik, veel en veel te lang geduurd voor Peter Sauber. Misschien dat ze volgend jaar met Heinz-Harald Frentzen wat beter...
Gosh, don't Damon's eyes look like Graham Hill's. And he's looking astonishingly calm and relaxed about the whole thing. Many people in his position would be turning handsprings, even after having driven round the Hungaroring for about an hour and 45 minutes in extreme heat. But to recap, and what a wonderful result it is to give again, Damon Hill wins his first Grand Prix in Hungary and moves back to third in the World Championship.
We hebben toch een spannende wedstrijd gezien. Top 5 in de 10e ronde. Hill, Senna, Berger, Patrese, Alesi. Na 20 ronden was het Hill, Schumacher, Patrese, Prost, Warwick. Na 30 ronden zagen we Hill, Patrese, Warwick, Blundell en Berger. Na 40 ronden was het Hill, Patrese, Berger, Warwick en Brundle. Was er even een stuivertje gewisseld. Dat bleef zo in de 50ste en in de 60ste ronde. Na de 60ste ronde was het Pierluigi Martini die het voor gezien had. En kijk, die Patrese is uit die auto klimmen werkelijk. En hij heeft weer gelijk gehad. Voor de wedstrijd riep hij vorig jaar in Mexico. Toen had ik Montezuma's Revenge. Ernstig last van diarree. Toen won ik de wedstrijd. Nu heb ik een griep onder de leden. En ik maak me er totaal geen zorgen om. Want als ik ziek ben, heb ik een goed resultaat. En vandaag is het wederom gebleken. Damon Hill is blij en tevreden. Kijk, en dat is Alain Prost, want zo kennen de mensen hem niet. Prost feliciteert zijn teamgenootje, feliciteert ook Riccardo Patrese. Want Prost wordt vaak afgeschermd als een man die hautaine is. En hij is niet makkelijk, maar hij is wel straight. Maar ook vandaag dus niet naar het podium. Dat is dit jaar nog niet gebeurd. Althans, een aantal keren natuurlijk wel. Hij ziet de fans die stromen richting dat podium waar zo direct de gebruikelijke volksliederen zullen gaan klinken. En waar zijn we volgend jaar om deze tijd? Is er dan nog de Grand Prix van Hongarije? Of is het al...
Alain Prost made the fastest lap of the race. He didn't relax for a moment after, first of all, failing to get away and then having that long pit stop while the Williams team corrected his problem. And he made the fastest lap of the race on lap 52 out of 77, 1 minute 19.633, which is 1.3 seconds slower than Nigel Mansell's lap record last year. So Williams have won the race. They still hold the lap record, albeit with the world champion of 1992, Nigel Mansell. And Benetton can be very pleased with the race, except for Schumacher's problem. But Grand Prix cars are very sensitive beasts. They are highly developed. They are very technical. And although they are built to last a race distance, it's never surprising if something goes wrong at the extremes which they operate and results in their driver retiring. Well, we're soon going to see Hill, Patrese and Berger come out, but a tough race.
Yes, indeed.
Beker zo direct. En die zal bij hen thuis denk ik een heel prominent plaatsje in de huiskamer krijgen. Want ik denk dat de allereerste Grand Prix overwinning voor een rijder nog steeds iets heel speciaals.
For the driver.
There he is. That's a memorable shot. His first win and a courtly bow from Damon Hill. Gerhard Berger, third position on the right of the rostrum. You notice the way he's carrying his left arm. You see the padding there underneath his overall sleeve. And Riccardo Patrese, the veteran Italian, as I say, his 251st Grand Prix. But a wonderful day for Damon Hill, for the Williams team, for Renault, for all their suppliers and sponsors, for British Motorsport, who have supported Damon so well through the years, and all of them, Hill, Williams and everybody else, have seen a wonderful return. Yes, Damon, who's a quiet chap and doesn't normally show a lot of emotion, is clearly absolutely delighted, and understandably so. Gerhard Berger looking a bit tired and worn. It must have been a very tough race for him. And indeed for all of them, because I remind you about the heat. So, the national anthem, both for Damon Hill, having won for Britain, and for Williams, having won for Britain. The Williams team's 8th Grand Prix victory of the year, and Damon Hill's first, not only of the year.
En de krantenkoppen zullen schreeuwen morgen in Engeland. Dat is ook nog de beker links beeld van Patrick Head, die hem in ontvangst neemt namens het team. Nou, spoedig zullen we zien hoe jeugdig deze twee oude mannen zijn. En deze Damon Hill, hij heeft het podium dit jaar al een aantal keren gezien, maar natuurlijk niet op de hoogste treden gestaan. Het champagne zal hier een prettige afkoeling zijn voor wat betreft deze drie matadoren. Zo mag je ze toch wel eventjes noemen, om maar een cliché te gebruiken.